my name is Maria Ly Schwaller, and I am Chinese. Chinese. I do not speak Chinese. I was not born in China, nor is Maria a traditional Chinese name, in case you didn't know. My parents are descendants of the Diuzhou or Jiaozhou people who are originally from Southeast China, although they were both born in Southwest Vietnam in a city called Rat Ra. Many people don't know this, but Diuzhou is actually a separate language from Cantonese or Mandarin, and it's called Diuzhou. It's a dying language, actually, and only 12 to 15 million people speak it today. I don't speak that either. By the time the Vietnam War ended in 1975, my parents owned a convenience store in their hometown. They were homeowners and small business owners with 2 children. My dad had fought in the army during the Vietnam War for the South, and when the South lost, he had to burn or bury all of his clothes so that the Communist Party wouldn't know that he fought against them. I imagine he would have been put into a re-education camp, or worse, killed if they did. By 1979, they had 2 more children. It was then that their business and home were confiscated by the North Vietnamese Communist Party, and they were forced to leave everything behind and flee the country. They were around 40 years old. That's the same age I am now. I think about that a lot, especially now that I have children of my own. Imagine having to pick up my entire life and my entire family and leave the country that I knew I grew up in. My parents, along with their 4 children, my grandfather and his 2 wives, yes, you heard that right, 2 wives living together, they did just that. The people in this mass exodus would later be known as the Vietnamese boat people, a term used to describe refugees who fled Vietnam by sea following the end of the Vietnam War. Migration was highest between 1978 and 1979. That was around the time that my family had left. And over the next 15 years, about 800,000 people were relocated safely to new countries, and another 200 to 400,000 would never see land again, having faced danger from pirates, diseases, starvation, overcrowded boats, storms, you name it. Some historians actually believe this number is even higher. The ship that my family was on, they were told, was one of the last refugee boats to Malaysia. It typically held 200 to 300 passengers, and on their particular trip, it held 600 passengers. On their journey, they too would face danger from pirates, diseases, starvation, and storms. And my mom had to sew money into random parts of her body, into pockets to hide it from pirates. At least 2 people died on the ship that they knew of. The dead were wrapped up and thrown overboard. And all things considered, my parents felt very lucky since they had heard stories of other families and knew other families leaving on much smaller boats only to have them all die. And even though they brought what they could onto the ship, they couldn't take it all with them when they reached the shore. My mom often associates living in the refugee camp with one very, very long camping trip. At the camp, they had to wash all their clothes and use the restroom in the ocean. Needless to say, sanitation in the crowded conditions was the greatest problem. Food and drinking water had to be imported by barge and consisted mostly of coffee and rice. The refugees constructed shelters from boat timbers, plastic sheeting, flattened tin cans, palm fronds, whatever they could find on the beach. They couldn't communicate with anyone outside of camp because of the language barrier. My mom asked a stranger if they had spare clothes, but they didn't speak the same language. She finally met someone who spoke Cantonese, which was similar enough where she could understand the language. And that person told her that if she knew how to sew, she could come over and get clothes. So my mom left that person's house with 2 bags full. But before returning to camp, she was stopped by policemen who threatened to take her clothes unless she gave them $100. So feeling like she had no choice, she paid them off. She gave clothes to people who didn't have it. She kept a few for herself and her kids. Overall, my family spent about 14 months in that refugee camp. During that time, my grandfather passed away. He's still buried there. At the same time, my mom also got pregnant with my older sister. She was about 7 months pregnant, ready to start a new life in America when she was told that she should wait to give birth in Malaysia before coming to the US. Why? Because she would have to pay all of the hospital bills. And there was no way they could do that. They left nearly everything behind in Vietnam and didn't have much left. They thought about sending my dad and the other kids ahead, and my mom would stay behind until after she gave birth to my sister. But since they already had their resettlement papers and their IDs, they all decided to stay together as a family. So about 4 weeks after my sister was born, they finally got on a plane and landed in Los Angeles, California. So by the time I was born, around December of 1981, they were settled for about a full year and a half in this new country. They had found a group of Gaikinang people, which is a term that they use to call their people, and they felt almost at home immediately. There was a Chinatown, there were Chinese stores, there were Chinese doctors, Chinese groceries, Chinese restaurants, Chinese barbershops, Chinese temple association, you name it. They just felt at home. They didn't need to assimilate into the traditional American culture as we know it. My parents found their people. In fact, they never even quite learned English. My mom never learned how to drive. My parents never changed their names. We never celebrated any of the traditional American holidays. There was no Christmas, no 4th of July, no Memorial Day, no Thanksgiving. Instead, we had Chinese New Year, and we had moon festivals, and we had Chinese Day of the Dead. They never even got a job that was on the books. I was born 2 weeks past my mom's due date with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. I had to stay in the hospital for over 2 weeks. And my mom told me she would visit me every day, but she didn't want to hold me. She later told me she didn't want to get too attached and had come to terms about me dying in the hospital. Turns out my parents had another baby, a boy, around 1974 or 75. This would be about the time the Vietnam War ended. And my mom had left the baby in the hospital overnight, and he passed away. So she never talks about it. She never even tells us whether or not he had a name. All she knows or remembers is that the war had ended. Nurses were busy taking care of all the soldiers. There was nobody left to take care of her baby. Obviously, the conditions were different in Los Angeles, and one day the hospital staff told my parents that they could take me home. So here they were with their new baby girl, the youngest of their 7 children. My parents wanted to give their new baby an American name. After all, I was born in America. I'm the American-born daughter. In fact, throughout my life, my parents would often introduce me to their friends as their American-born daughter. This is my American-born daughter, Maria. I think it was their own way of assimilation, actually, by introducing me as their American-born daughter. They asked their friends and family, who didn't speak English either, about giving me an American name. They said, "Oh, we have this American-born daughter. We need to give her an American name." So around the time they looked around their neighborhood was Los Angeles, and it's mostly Hispanic. And there are a lot of girls named Maria. Shocking. So they said, "Oh, Maria must be an American name. We shall name our American-born daughter Maria." That is how I got my name. So these days, I often reflect on my family and my culture. Maybe it's because they're all in Los Angeles and I don't get to see them as often. Maybe it's because I miss my mom's cooking. Maybe it's because of the variety of food that I miss in LA as well. Maybe it's because for the first time I look around and notice that no one looks like me. Or that when my son was playing soccer, he was the only boy who was not blonde on the team. Having moved away from everything I knew about my Chinese heritage, I feel the need to hold on to it even more. I remind my kids that they're half Chinese, and I show them what it means to me. Eating foods I grew up eating, egg rolls, chow mein, celebrating Chinese New Year, getting red envelopes, all the exciting things. My daughter is excited right now. They even learned their Chinese zodiac sign and what that means. And by showing them, I'm also reminding myself that I'm not the American born daughter. I'm actually the Chinese daughter who happened to be born in America. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maria. I think I appreciate everybody's applause for it because it really takes an amount of courage to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and share stories about your family and your past. So thank you for sharing that with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Our second storyteller this evening is Sriram Samu, and he's a Madeira resident since 2018. He is the Vice President of Customer Technology at the Kroger Company, and his story is going to talk about lessons learned on his life journey, and it's entitled My Journey.
Good evening. Maria, that is a really moving story. And one thing I learned over time is it's really hard to speak after somebody who does such a fantastic story. So promise me that every time I pause, you guys clap or smile or something so that I feel that I'm not totally messing it up, right? So thank you, Vice Mayor, for inviting me and the Inclusion Committee to having me here. I'm really excited to be here. This is actually a great time to meet a lot of people. Winter is over. It's kind of feels like we can get outside and move around. First of all, I want to introduce my wife, Lata. She's here. So we've been married for 33 years or 32 years, and we'll be celebrating our 33rd anniversary in less than a month. So as I talk about my story, it's actually our story. And as we go through, you'll actually find our stories intertwined quite a bit over the years. So I was born, first, I moved to Madeira in 2018. We stay just off Summit Avenue. I have two daughters. Both are in the East Coast. My older daughter is doing her MBA at Northeastern University, and the younger one is working in New York at NASDAQ. So, and they both come here. I think moving to Madeira has been a great relief because they can come and visit us. We spent 30 years in the Bay Area before we moved here. So that's actually been a welcome change to have our children come and visit us. So my journey started, let's see, I should have printed out the thing, would have been easier. So my journey started in a small village in India, South India. In fact, it is a small village. It's still a small village. And I was born on the farm of my grandmother, and I was delivered by a midwife. And I'm talking about the early 1960s. And in those days, it was pretty common to have the baby being born in the grandmother's house, or the wife goes to the mother's house. And my mom did that. And I was born right after midnight, I believe. And the midwife turns to my mom and says, "This boy is really lucky. He will live like a king." And my mom used to repeat that when I was growing up, and I took that to heart. So maybe there is a luck factor somewhere that I can actually tap into if everything goes wrong. Interestingly, there is also a custom that the woman goes over to the mother's house and stays for about 3 or 4 months. So my mom was with my grandmother for about 3 months or 4 months after I was born. My dad, who was actually a doctor in the medical college, one of the biggest medical colleges in the state, was hanging around with his buddies and doing whatever they do in the hospital, right? And he used to have meals with his buddies. And one of his friends was actually an eye surgeon by the name Dr. Subramaniam. Interestingly, Dr. Subramaniam's wife had also gone to deliver a baby girl. Pause, drum roll. Had it been a movie, that would have been Lata. But it was not. It was her older sister. So she was born a few years later. And of course, our family, like her father had operated on my mother's grandfather and my grandmother and like all kinds of people in the family. And we joke that actually more people know her in my family than they know me. So it's kind of, it goes back a long way. And our mothers are friends. Our fathers are, of course, very good friends and colleagues. So I grew up in Kerala, which is one of the small states in India. And if people know that, it's on the west coast of India, and they call it God's own country. It's a beautiful area. It's also very multicultural, right? So we have the language spoken. I'm of Tamil origin, so we speak Tamil at home. My father is from Tamil Nadu, my mom is from Kerala. We speak Tamil at home, but the language in the state was Malayalam. So we learned to speak Malayalam and Tamil. And then, of course, when you go to school, you have to learn how to speak English and Hindi. And then later on in life, I learned a little bit of French. The only thing I can say, so I was truly multilingual, but I can say I usually sucked in every language. I'm really bad at language. I can't do any language. So, but I sometimes get confused even today. I'm speaking in Tamil or Malayalam or some other language, but I get by. So it's okay. But we speak Tamil at home. We try to bring our kids up learning a little bit of Tamil. They were both born in the US. Growing up in the college, like there were two things that happened, right? When you grow up with doctors, you get a vaccination every year, multiple times. I don't know what they are, but I get them every year. And the two, if you get hurt, you get great medical care. So as a boy growing up, I think, we used to play a lot of, I used to play a lot of sports, and my only goal was to really become a sportsman, right? That is like pretty much all boys growing up kind of want to become a sportsman. That is my goal. So I played cricket, I played field hockey, I played badminton, I played tennis, ping pong, you name it, every sport we would play with them, because the students in the college would let us play because we are the kids of the professors. They really didn't have a choice, right? So they would let us play. So I was generally good at sports, not too bad, and I came up to the state level and at the university level when I was playing. And I was I was reasonably good at academics. But I found out really, if you're playing sports, you need one skill, which I didn't have, which is speed. I was the slowest guy in the team. And very quickly, I realized that I'm not going to go anywhere as a sportsman, even though my parents really encouraged me to go and play games when I wanted to. So that means, I think Mark Zuckerberg stole the word from me. It's called fail fast. So as soon as I realized that I'm not going anywhere, I said, I'm not going to play sports competitively after that. And I decided I should take up academics, start studying. So in my junior year and senior, I said, I need to study. And, in India at that time, you become a doctor or an engineer. And given that everybody in my family, my dad, my sister, my uncles, grandfather, everybody is a doctor, I said, I want to branch out and go and do engineering. The only thing is I didn't know anything about engineering. And there are some colleges there was a few colleges in India called the Indian Institute of Technology, which are one of those high, fairly hard to get in. In fact, one about 10,000 people can get in if you apply. And they have a 12-hour test that you need to write. So I studied hard, wrote the exam, thought about the midwife who said, this guy is born lucky. And I lucked out. So I actually got into the school and I joined. And so it's all luck, right? So don't take it as anything else. Luck works very well. And getting into IIT is hard enough, but getting the right major is even harder, because it's like matching for doctors when they go for residency. You cannot put your list of majors that you want to major in, and they will kind of match you based on your rank or score. And I got chemical engineering. And I said, I like chemistry. I should like chemical engineering. Because go into IIT, find that chemistry and chemical engineering have nothing to do with each other. So, but it was fun. I mean, it was extremely competitive place. And you find out lesson number 2, right? You're never the smartest person in the room. You meet a lot of people who are much smarter than you, and you need to figure out how to work with them. And that's what I did. I mean, I have a lot of lifelong friends that I'm still in touch with. I meet on a regular basis, and we are very close. I mean, in fact, with WhatsApp and so on, we have friends pretty much, my IIT classmates pretty much across the world. And when I go to any city, all I need to do is send a note saying, hey, I'm coming to New York, and 5 people are saying, please come and visit us. You can stay with me. You can go for dinner. So it's actually a great way to keep up with my network of people. Graduated from IIT, and then I was trying to decide what to do next. And because I didn't really like chemical engineering, so I applied. I got a job in India and had a couple of admissions for an MBA. I also applied to the United States and got a couple of scholarships to come here and study. At that time, India was really the close to the market, right? The growth in India was really, really low, and there was really not a great opportunity. So a lot of people used to migrate out of India. So I said, okay, maybe the right thing to do is let me also go to the States. Since I had a scholarship, my dad said, okay, sure, go ahead, and he supported me to coming here. So I came to Washington State University at Pullman. And I go into Pullman. And for anyone, has anyone been to Washington State or Pullman? There you go. 26,000 people when I went there, 22,000 students, there's nothing else there. So I go from a 5 million big city in Madras or Chennai to this little town in Pullman, and I say, like, what did I get myself into? And then after I spent about like a few days in the lab, in the basement, I decided, like, I don't think chemical engineering is my field of study. The joke in Pullman was, there are two really interesting things in Pullman. You watch the grass grow, and you watch the apple fall off the tree. Neither of them really appealed to me. So I had to say, I need to get out of here. And I know I didn't want to go back, and I'll be a failure. So I said, let me think about something else. So I said, I'll apply for computer science, because I'd done a computer science class when I was in IIT. It was those punch cards and feeding them into a mainframe. So I said, I can do software. I had done algorithms, so I can do really well. So I applied for a scholarship to Wisconsin. I got the admission there. They gave me a scholarship. So I moved to Madison and did my undergraduate, my master's in computer science. Best 2 years, Madison, great city, beautiful campus, very liberal, very, everything, it checks off everything, except that it's really cold. So I told myself, I need to get out of the Midwest and never come back, or anywhere in the North and never come back. So I moved to California. So I went to the Silicon Valley, and I worked in multiple companies over the years. And, all of them, some of them good, some of them bad. I worked in startup companies that went bust. I worked in startup companies that did well. I worked in big companies, small companies. So while we were doing that, Silicon Valley, I was talking to Jim, and he said, like, he lived over there, great place to live in, very diverse, not unlike Kerala. Very multicultural, a lot of talent. So not unlike IIT, you get the best of people coming there. People want to go there because it's an open discussion. You have a lot of, let's say, dissent. People question openly. The person with the best idea wins. It is not the VP or the CTO who wins, but the person who has the best idea wins. That is what attracts a lot of people from around the US, around the world, to go to Silicon Valley. And so we enjoyed living there. And around the time, we had two girls. So we were thinking about how do we get them to understand their origins and connect to the family. So eBay was setting up a development center in India. And so I got selected to go run that. So we moved to India, 4 of us, and we spent 2 years over there. And by the time, India had changed. India had opened up, a lot of development in India, and most of the smart people don't want to come anywhere. They want to live in India and work there. So I kind of missed the boat. That is maybe my unluck, but if I had stayed for 20 years in India, maybe I'd have never moved out of there. So we went to India, fantastic time, and the best thing we did is we got a black lab, Cody, that we picked up in 2009. Unfortunately, we had to put him down 2 weeks ago. He stayed with us for 14 years. We brought him from India. He stayed in Madras, Chennai. He came to Silicon Valley. He came to Cincinnati. He was in Madeira. And I'm sure if you walk around Madeira, you'd have seen us walk at the black lab. And he gave Jim, he used to market Jim all the time. There you go. So, but, we had great 14 years, and I hope he's had great 14 years with us. And he got to see the world. He traveled around quite a bit. So after India, we came back, and I worked in a few more companies, and I was trying to figure out what is next. That is when Kroger came. I think Amazon acquired Whole Foods, and Kroger's e-commerce business was not doing very well. So they reached out to me and they recruited me to come over to Cincinnati. So I moved to Cincinnati. At that time, again, we were looking at, do we want to come back to the Midwest? And quite honestly, we didn't know where Cincinnati was. I knew it's in Ohio, by the way. And when the first time I came here, the pilot was saying, welcome to Kentucky. And I'm saying, do I need to take a connection to get to Cincinnati? Did I mess up something? And the second thing I see when I come out is tornado safety areas. So I said, I can deal with that. Earthquake, there is no warning. Tornado, at least there's a warning. I can actually go and hide somewhere. So actually, it felt a lot better. So we came and visited. I think the opportunity was great that we actually said we need to come over here. And I think it's been an fantastic time for us, right? We have spent the last 5 years and working at Kroger and being able to serve the community, serve the associates, serve the customers, and especially during the times of COVID when my team was doing all the COVID vaccinations. If there was a bug, you didn't get an appointment, that's not my fault. That's somebody else's fault, right? So please, so we got during COVID, there's a lot of work. We were doing a lot of work with technology, how to make pickup easier, how to make delivery easier, and there was so much demand. So I think just the 3 years during COVID was exceptionally gratifying. So I worked in many companies. So learning has been one of the other things that I really I'm really focused on. It's a lifelong passion for me. My grandmother, again, goes back to the family. My grandmother probably did elementary school, but she learned like 4 or 5 languages after that. She could play musical instruments and she would write me letters in English just to practice. My mother, at the age of 45, when all the kids left home and went to college, she went and enrolled to be a pharmacist. She got a degree, opened up a pharmacy, and she was a pharmacist till about 5 years ago. Leta came from India and she studied her MBA when she was in San Jose. Both my girls have gone through, one is doing grad school, the other one has finished grad school. And I keep learning by working. Every job I work in, there's something new that I learn because every company is different. Every technology is different. I started with mainframe, gone to PCs, mid-range computers, workstations, cloud, native apps, you name it. Like I've done everything over the past 30 years. And I'm sure there'll be something else. Maybe it is quantum computers or maybe it's AI, but we are ready for it. We'll learn new things and we'll do good on that. We are I also helped, when I came here, my girls also were kind of not very excited, but one of my second daughter eventually ended up, don't boo, she went to Michigan for a grad school. And we are proud that she came and studied in the Midwest and she got a feeling of that. She interned in a summer in Kroger and she likes it. She still is my biggest critique on how our native app works or how the website works, and she'll keep sending me bugs. So I have somebody at home who keeps me on my toes and a lot of people at work who keep me on my toes. So what my story is that eventually I think there's a lot of learnings along the way, but the biggest thing is we had a lot of concerns coming to Cincinnati, but we made a lot of friends here. And Leta is part of a book club that she Madeira Book Club. I think there's a very active Madeira Book Club. She's part of that. She has a nonprofit organization that she started that helps people with to understand heart health awareness. We are part of a hiking club that we go hiking any which way to meet people. And finally, I found a sport where my speed is not a problem anymore. I started learning playing golf for the past 2 years. So that's the one I can walk. I don't need to run. I don't need to do anything. I don't even need to be strong to hit the ball. So that's perfectly up my alley. But Cincinnati has been great. So eventually what we figured is it's not really the good weather, the restaurants. Yeah, that matters. I know, Jim, I know there's only 2 Chinese restaurants in town that you like. But it's really the people that you work with and the people that you live with and how you connect to the community. And I think coming to Cincinnati, being in Madeira, I think we have found a place that really connects with us and we enjoy living here. Thank you for listening to my story. This has been awesome.
Sriram, thank you very much. That was obviously a compelling story. Lots of important takeaways. Number one is you must be very smart because if there were 10,000 people in the school, keep in mind that there are about 1.5 billion people in India. So that's quite a selection process.
1 in 10,000 here.
Well, there you go. We also learned that apparently Jim offends black labs. So if you're a dog owner, be aware of that. No, but we appreciate your story. Thank you very much. Our next storyteller is Ramzi Takieddine. Ramzi's been a resident of Madeira for 8.5 years. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with Ramzi. He's very involved in our community, very involved in the Parks Board, and has been just a tremendous community volunteer for us. He works as an engineer at P&G, and his story is about immigrant parents, and it's called A Love Story.
I do not normally use mics. Those of you that know me know I'm relatively loud, so I will do my best to do well with this. Also, if you see me getting wrapped up like a boa, please let me know. I will try to move around a little bit. So good evening. My name is Ramzi. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity to share the story with you today. So a huge thank you to the Madeira Inclusion Committee for the invitation. Was more than happy to join. I'll talk more about the Inclusion Committee at the end as well. I'll admit that when I initially prepared for this, I approached it like the engineer that I am. Facts and dates, timelines, graphs, and I was sharing with my mom a little bit of the preparation. She just shouted, "Boring!" It's my own life and I don't care. And so you have her to thank for that real feedback. The feedback of our daughters and our wives tend to be very direct. So instead I took some great advice from Tom during a meeting and looked for a theme to bring it all together, which led to this love story theme, which hopefully you'll find at least slightly more interesting than my mother found my first take. So the story that I'm going to tell you is a little bit about a choice that so many of our families make and so many of our parents made and many of us probably made as well, which is the choice of love over an easy path. The choice of love. Excuse me. Sorry. So, this isn't even the sad part. That comes later. I think I'm anticipating. Okay, deep breath. Over parents, will, men wishes. There we go. Got it. And the choice of love over self and ease of your own life. So let me explain a little further. My dad was born in 1957 in Beirut, Lebanon. He's the youngest of 5 children. If you've never been there, in times of peace, Beirut lives up to its name, which is the Paris of the Middle East. It is an amazing city and an amazing country. My father's family descends from a long line of political leaders in Lebanon. We trace our family back 16 generations, so roughly 400 years. I actually have a picture on my phone of the family tree. I thought about bringing it, but it's like really big, and I was worried it would not survive the car ride. So I have a picture on my phone if you want to see it. His family is Druze. If you're not familiar with Lebanese politics, which I would not expect you to be, it is highly religious in its orientation. So the Druze religion is an offshoot of Islam that's a very small religion, and it's centered in the mountains in Lebanon and Syria. So it's a relatively small religion. My grandfather held many positions of authority in Lebanon. So he was the governor of northern Lebanon, the minister of defense, and then an ambassador to Sudan, Yugoslavia, and Cyprus. So my father was raised in this environment, schooled in the international schools of many of these countries with many political leaders that are currently in the region today. However, his time in Lebanon was cut short with the outbreak of the Civil War in 1975. I think many of you who grew up around this time are probably familiar with the Lebanese Civil War and the associated impacts that had on the population there. So he needed to find a place to go to school. He was 18. He had 2 friends from his time overseas that happened to settle in central Louisiana. So central Louisiana is where he went. He was able to get into school in the middle of the school year there. While many of you don't know Lebanon, I can assure you that if there's an opposite, it's central Louisiana. So quite the adjustment. My mother was born in Tegucigalpa, Honduras in 1958. She is also the youngest of 5 children. Her family has an interesting past as well that I'll very briefly touch on. So her father is Palestinian, and they fled the violence within the collapsing Ottoman Empire and moved to Honduras in the early 1900s. I have no idea why they went there, but that's where they ended up. My grandmother's family left Scotland and had been in Roatan for about 4 generations. Those don't know, Roatan's an island just off the coast of Honduras. A lot of cruise ships stop by there. And so they came together in a fundamentalist Christian church where they were both missionaries for most of their lives. So that's how they got together. My mom, when she was graduating high school, wanted to come to the U.S. for her education. Her sister was living in New Orleans, so she tried to get into school there and failed. And I will set aside the academic implications of that on my mother. So she found a small program in central Louisiana where she could pursue a degree in, I think, economics or something similar to that. And it's there that she met a handsome, mustachioed, dark gentleman. He told me that he fell in love at first sight. She thought he was obnoxious. She was probably right, but he's the kind of guy who grows on you over time. So my parents' courtship was a pretty slow one. A lot of skipping class to watch Days of Our Lives, which amazingly was a show back then. and a lot of driving around in Louisiana with friends because that's pretty much all there is to do. The reason it was a little slow is they both knew it would end. So they knew that eventually my dad was expected to return to Lebanon, marry a Jersey woman, and grow up in politics there. That was his future. And my mom was going to return to Honduras and get involved with the church and marry a nice Christian boy. But as their love grew, they began to have doubts. The doubts led to conversations. The conversations led to an ultimatum from their parents. And my parents have never been very good with ultimatums. And so they eloped. It was the most reckless thing either of them have ever done, but the best decision that they ever made. So my parents moved from Louisiana to Houston to Nashville, which is where I came into the picture, and my two younger sisters. They then moved to Cincinnati, which is where we were all raised in Sycamore schools. We had the chance very often through our childhood to visit the countries of origin of my parents. Every summer was spent in Honduras, about 4 or 5 weeks. I got to go to Lebanon quite often once the situation there calmed down geopolitically. What I can say a little bit about a first generationer like me. So first generation, for those who don't know, is immigrants are my parents. I'm first generation. We can pass in many ways. So my accent, my hobbies, my sports fandom, my deep love of Skyline as evidenced by my waistline. But we are also very different. And this is exactly what my parents wanted when they chose to stay here. People very proud of our heritage. I'm extremely proud of my heritage on both sides of the family. I'm very involved in Hispanic networks at P&G and, Lebanese, and engage a lot with that family. Sorry, listen. Yeah. But still getting the opportunities that come from growing up in the best country in the world. So that combination is exactly what they wanted for us. My parents, this is the sad part, so I'll get through it. So, thanks, Doug. So my parents were married for 37 years until my dad's death in 2017, which I'm still, working through a little bit. Nice. Oh man, it's going on a blue shirt. Yeah, it's not Skyline. Should have gotten a bib. So my sisters and mom live in Columbus now, so they're very close by. And I chose with my wife to raise our family here in Madeira. My 3 Irish, Polish, Lebanese, Honduran girls will never know what box to check on any form. They're in the back there, little monkeys, smiling and blushing. They don't like being the center of attention. So I'll close then with, when people think about immigration, we tend to focus on why people leave, wherever they're leaving from. But for my family, I think the story is much more about why they chose to stay. They chose to start their family in the U.S. and develop a life from scratch here. They chose each other. They chose love. And so in preparing for this, I had a chance to talk to a lot of you and many people about their stories. Each story was unique, and you could see clearly how their story led to the amazing person that they are today. Inclusion is not about metrics. So inclusion is not about numbers. Inclusion is about valuing people for who they are and what they bring to our community. And that's why I'm so grateful for the efforts of the Inclusion Committee to strive towards that ideal. Madeira is where I chose to make my home and start my family's unique story. And I'm very proud to do that alongside all of you. So thank you all for your time, and thanks for being a part of what makes this place special.
Thank you very much, Ramzi. It's now more evident why you are so committed to public service, because it's something you grew up with and a tradition of your family. And we again, I thank you for your service to our community, and thank you for sharing with us this evening. We have one final storyteller this evening. This is Lee Jimenez. He's a 3-year resident of Madeira. He's a 3rd grade teacher at Indian Hill Elementary School, and he's going to talk to us about the journey of his parents in growing up in a non-Hispanic community. His story is entitled The Mexican Circle.
This is definitely an audience I'm not used to. I just want to say thank you guys. What an honor to be a part of this. The 3 storytellers before us being vulnerable, amazing stories. And I'm sure there's other stories in the crowd that are just as amazing. I'm going to try to do what the Mexican Circle is. It's called telling a story, but it usually takes 30 minutes to an hour. And so in about 5-6 minutes. So it's the way my parents told stories growing up. And I never really appreciated it. My grandparents did it that way too. And I was like, just get to the point already. But as I got older and I get more, back to the culture. I just want to be near it more, and I miss it more. I appreciate it now more than ever before. So I do have to say I am one of the luckiest people here. I wasn't even supposed to be part of this, and I'm here, and my parents' story is why I'm so lucky. I feel so grateful for what they've done, their perseverance, their hard work, and I need to tell a little bit of their story to understand why I'm up here. So my mom started out in Ciudad Juarez, right by the border, and she was illegal, and she went over the border in El Paso, and met her first husband, and they moved to New Mexico, had 2 kids, but unfortunately he became an alcoholic, and there was domestic abuse involved, and so she left him. Now my dad's story, and she only went to 5th grade. My dad's story on the other side, he actually grew up with 13 kids on a farm in Jalisco. One of the traditions in Mexico, when you have a family of like rich or wealth, there's called songs corridos. And my dad actually, family was a corrido in Mexico about my dad's family, which I never believed him until I heard it at all. And one day it's playing on the radio, and then sure enough, they're talking about my dad's family, and I'm like, oh my God, this is real. and so sometimes they tell the truth, and he just said, and so we decided, and so he was like number 6 or 7 on the totem pole. He saw what was going to happen. I'm not getting the land. And so he decided to come over. He actually came over twice and got deported both times. And then the 3rd time, he actually ended up in Chicago. And so my mom, leaving her first husband, actually left her 2 kids behind in New Mexico with her sister. And she worked on farms, sent money back to her sister to take care of them. As she moved slowly over to Chicago, she met her own sister, who happened to be living with my dad in a small apartment, 5 people, just trying to make ends meet. And that's how they actually started dating. Now, a little bit forward, my dad was, again, like I said, the 3rd time, his factory got raided, and he was about to get deported for the 3rd time. And she and the manager somehow came up with this crazy idea of like, let's say you're getting married. And for some reason, the judge went along with it, and they had no money. They said they're just saving up money, trying to get married. And my mom sacrificed actually is the reason why I'm here today. They went along with it. It was not one of those courtships. Like, that was a beautiful story. It was one of those sacrifices that my mom made. And from that came my 2 other brothers and myself. So in all, my family there's 5 of us. And we grew up in a little part of Chicago called Humboldt Park, which was probably 90% Hispanic, and the rest 10% was Eastern European. And so to us, that was like home. To them, it was like Mexico all over again. And so they didn't know anything else. They didn't have to simulate. Everything was good. But they knew it was not a great neighborhood to have their kids grow up. So they saved enough money, got us out to the suburbs, little place called Franklin Park by O'Hare. And that's when we realized, wait a minute, there's another world out there. And it was 90% Caucasian and probably 10% Hispanic, but the 10% Hispanic lived in apartments. We were one of the few families that actually had a house in the neighborhood. And that, I would say, by 2nd, 3rd grade growing up, that's when I finally realized that I was different than others. And the students with me actually let me know that with their terms that he called me. I would probably, once a week, you would hear something else from the kids there. And like I said, K through 6 building, there was 12 Hispanics in the building. One of those things you didn't realize it till you got older. But in the end, my parents realized that the language of power was English. And so we totally put to the side our Hispanic culture, and we rushed to assimilate. And with that, unfortunately, I felt like I was in the middle. At home, I was one person. In public, another person. And so it's called like masking. You kind of get used to it. You put on, or a chameleon, you get used to it after a while. You get good at it. You get good at it, really good at it. And unfortunately, as you get older, you just hope your kids don't have to do it either. And you hope that they don't have to mask themselves. They don't have to do that. And I feel like moving here to Madeira, my own 2 daughters don't have to do that. Luckily, I have a wife who embraces my culture at home. She'll help me with Day of the Dead. We'll make a little table and everything. She'll help with tamales. She'll help me with the buñuelos. Anything she's up for. She lets me know that it's okay to share our traditions. My daughters sometimes are a little reluctant because they don't see it as often. But I try to push it because I'm hoping they don't have that resentment like I did. Like I missed out on so many years of that. And so I don't want that for them. I don't want that for them either. And so I just feel lucky to be here in such a great community that has embraced my family, embraced me. I've never felt like, even though I went from one predominantly suburb to this one, I never felt ostracized or different. And so fast forward a little bit, in February, my dad actually got his citizenship finally. There's a lot of other holes in that story, but I'm trying to make sure we finish on time. But because of that judge's leniency, my mom's sacrifice, my parents' hard work, I'm proud to say that my sister is an ICU nurse. My oldest brother, he is a police officer. My other brother's a social studies teacher. And my other brother's a PE teacher / English teacher in Arizona. We've all became public servants in some form. And I just think if it wasn't for that judge, if it wasn't for my mom, if it wasn't for the teachers that I had growing up in the community I had, I wouldn't be here. And that's why I still feel like sometimes I'm the luckiest man alive. So thank you guys for listening to my story and have a great day.